Hi everybody, my name is Spartan2AR. Some of you may know me from Team Fortress 2. So, guess what everybody? I'm now starting a YouTube channel, and this is going to be my first playthrough. Welcome to Planet Base. It is a base building strategy game. Basically, you go to an uninhabited planet and you build a base on it for people to survive on. So, I just got this a little while ago. I think it was last Friday, and I played the hell out of it over the weekend. I totally binged game it, stayed up late. So yeah, so we'll start with a new game. So these two planets here are normally locked. So to unlock these two planets, you got to get milestones on this planet right here. This is the starting planet, the one we're gonna play on. So here's some of the details on the planet, and you can pick a location. Doesn't really matter. In fact, the last game I tried to play, I started in a pretty bad location. And you can name it, but I wouldn't get too invested in that, because if you make enough mistakes, the whole colony can just flat out collapse. So anyway, I'm just gonna zoom this around, and we'll start. The red planet Mars. Ooh, it's not really Mars. The planet doesn't have a name. So there's your ship, your little starting colony ship. Actually, this ship doesn't really, aside from this intro cinematic, this ship doesn't really serve a purpose. Well, actually, it serves a purpose as kind of a storage facility, but you'll eventually recycle it. So they're all your colonists, as they're referred to, or astronauts. So you may notice they have different colored suits. That determines their role. They also have different outfits when they're inside the colony. So first you got your workers. They operate certain machineries and collect basic resources. You got your biologists, who manage plants so that they grow. Your engineer, who builds and repairs things. And your medic, who heals people. Then you got a couple of droids, a builder droid that builds and repairs stuff, and a carrier droid that just carries stuff. So when you first start, there's your colony ship. There's all the stuff inside it. Okay, when you first start, the first thing you want to do is look around. Where are you going to start your base? What direction are you going to want to build it so that everything goes well? So it looks like there's not a whole lot in this direction, but there's a fair amount in that direction. So I'm going to try and build that way so I can go eternally. First thing you want to build is an airlock. This will also kind of be a bit of a tutorial, so that way your astronauts can get into the facility. Next, you want to build an oxygen generator. Now, the oxygen generator produces oxygen so that the astronauts can breathe. If they can't breathe, well, then they're going to suffocate and die. Next, you want to build a way of getting power, because this stuff will not work without power. Nothing will. So, here's a solar panel. Now, if you scroll your mouse wheel up and down, that can increase or decrease the size. And now, if it's bigger, it'll produce more energy. If it's smaller, it won't. Here's a pro tip: start off small, because you only have so many resources inside your colony ship. And if you try building stuff that's too big, you'll run out of resources way too fast, and you won't be able to build anything after that. I've tried it and failed miserably. So, now, next, what to build next? Alright, now, as you can see, they're building stuff. Now, if they're going too slow for you, you can push the plus button to make stuff go faster, and if stuff's going too fast, you can push the minus button to slow it down. So I'm going to push plus until they get some of that stuff working. Okay, now the oxygen generator also needs water, so the next thing you're going to want to build is one of these guys, water extractor. And again, start small. Don't build stuff that's too big that you can't handle it. Alright, next thing you're going to want to build is a power collector. Now this produces a fair amount of energy, 30 energy, but we're only using a little bit, only about less than 3. It's only about 1/10 of the energy. So we build a power collector. What that does is that any extra energy you produce will get stored. Now, the problem with solar panels is that they only produce energy when it's sunny out. If it's not sunny out, then it's not going to work. You also want to build a wind turbine. Now, wind turbines, they produce energy when the wind's blowing, but only when the wind's blowing, but that can be, day or night. So now I'm gonna accelerate this so all this stuff gets constructed. And of course, if the astronauts, if they can't breathe, then they'll suffocate pretty fast. And now they're going inside. And I wish someone would construct that wind turbine. There goes my little builder drone. Alright, so now we got a wind turbine. Okay, next thing we want to do is build a canteen, because these astronauts, they're going to get well, they're going to get thirsty. Well, actually, just because I like my bases to have a certain structure, I'm going to start by building a dorm. Now this is where they sleep. I'm going to put that there. Okay, so next what you want to build is canteen. Canteens are where your astronauts go to eat. And also, one of the things they're going to need in the immediate future is water. So first they're going to need oxygen, but then they're going to need water because they're going to get dehydrated real fast. Now you might be wondering about food. Well, we can wait on that a little bit. We've got these pre-made meals stored in the colony ship, so they can go without producing their own food just for a little while. But they're going to get thirsty. They're going to need to drink something, so that's why we want to build a canteen next, but just because I built the dorm. And the dorm is probably going to be the thing you want to build after the canteen, because after they get thirsty, they're going to get sleepy. So they're going to need to rest. So while the door, so I'm going to slow this down a bit. So one thing you can do so if you push tab, it makes the buildings transparent so you can see what's going on inside them. So now we're going to go to this, push the edit content button. I'm going to build a couple of bunks for the inside of the dorm so that if these guys get tired, they can sleep. And I wish somebody would go out there and build that canteen. Push the back button. Wrong button. So yeah, I want someone to build that canteen, because if no one builds that canteen, these guys are all going to get dehydrated and they're going to die. And that's the last thing you want. You start this game and everyone dies. Okay, so here we'll start with a drinking fountain right there. And I'll build a table. Can I build a drinking fountain next to it? No. And then a little, can I build a plant? Yeah, and then a little plant next to the drinking fountain. Now, the astronauts, they have all these statistics. So let me click on one of them. So first is health. If they lose all their health, they'll die. The second is food. They need to eat. Next is hydration. If they don't get enough to drink, they'll get dehydrated and die. Oxygen, sleep, and morale. And morale is, I think, one of those things that gets a little bit neglected. I'm going to accelerate this. Hopefully they will eventually build that drinking fountain so that they don't all get dehydrated and die. At least the drones are doing most of the work now. I don't know why that metal's right there. Alright. Okay. I'm just going to accelerate this just to see what goes on. They're all sleeping right now. Now they're going to go get something to drink so they don't die. Alright, now that they're starting to drink, they're probably not going to die of dehydration. Now, the next building you're going to want to build is going to be a biodome, which is basically an indoor farm. So, with a biodome, your astronauts can produce food that they can eat. So, again, start off small. You don't need it. It doesn't need to be big. You're only supporting 7 people. And if you look up here at the top, this is how many colonists you got, your robots, the time of day, and how fast the wind's blowing. If you push Alt, you can view how many resources you got. So you can see I got quite a bit of food, still got a fair amount of metal and plastic, got some medical supplies, and spares. Now, spares are used to fix things because wind turbines, robots, and solar panels will wear down a bit. So spares restore them so they don't break. And you will need more of those at some point. I'm going to slow this down and actually speed it up until they finish building that biodome. Okay, next thing I'd build after the biodome would be a laboratory. No, that's wrong. That's a bar. Wrong button. Laboratory right here. Now, before I build the bar, some of these structures are one-way buildings. So this T means that it's a dead end. So they can only have one of these little interconnecting paths going between them. Now, the laboratory is not one-way structure. As you can see, there's two, as you can see, but I like to treat it like it's a one-way structure because the laboratory will, so I can only build, you can only build so many objects inside a building. So if you don't do it, so if you were to, let's say, so some structures they have objects on the walls. The lab is one of those structures, and I'll get to it once that's finished. So now to help improve morale in here, I'm going to build a TV as well as that plant, so astronauts can watch TV, they can keep themselves entertained, they won't get bored. Build 2 TVs. Alright. Another thing I'm going to build is a water tower. Now, this produces water, but the amount of water it can produce kind of varies. It jumps up and down. So, just in case it produces less than what it's producing right now, I'm going to build a water tank, and its water tank is just like a power collector, except with water. It's pretty simple. You can probably get away with just having one water tank and just a bunch of pumps, but yeah, do it how you like. Now, as for these power collectors, you want to have a lot of these when you get a bigger base. Now, since this base is small, you know, I probably only need just the one, but as this base gets bigger, you're going to want more of these, and you're going to want big ones too, because, you know, several times my colonies have basically collapsed because I ran out of power, and that led to the biodome stop working. Then it wasn't producing any food, and then because of that, people just started starving to death, and next thing I knew, everyone was dead. So you really don't want to run out of power. So biodome, we're going to put stuff in here. Okay, let's talk about food. So we'll start with these darked out ones. These ones are, actually we'll start with these ones. So these ones are just vegetables, and those produce food. And so the ones here on this end are low maintenance, meaning they don't need to be babysat very much, but they don't produce as much. These ones are higher maintenance on the other end, but they produce more, but they need to be babysat more. So let's build a tomato plant. These are starchy plants. They produce a little less food than these other plants, but in turn they produce plant starch, which is used to make plastic. So I'm going to build one of those and one of those. And you kind of want to have variety. And next you got this medical pad, which produces a special plant that makes medicine. Now, these are trees. They improve morale, and they produce a little bit of oxygen during the daytime, but then they start sucking up oxygen at night. So these things, don't bother with them. Just fuck the trees. There's plenty of them back on Earth. Or maybe not. Maybe that's why we're here. But anyway, I wouldn't bother with these. These darkened out ones are genetically modified plants. You have to get special technologies in order to produce these. And there are other cool technologies, but we'll get to that later. If this colony survives. Last time I've been taking a lot of mulligans, so I'm going to pause just for a sec. Pause the video. I got a phone. Alright, so now we're going to continue. My phone call ended. Yeah, I got stuff going on in real life too. So, tomato plant. Now, it's not enough just to have the plants. You gotta have a meal maker. So we go to the canteen and we produce a meal maker. So these, now most objects you can just recycle and get your stuff back. So I'm gonna get rid of that plant since I got TVs and they're identical. I'm gonna produce a meal maker. So what happens with the meal maker is it takes vegetables and meat to make meals, and it says you should recycle your colony ship, and yeah, I am running out of plastic, so recycle the colony ship and I get a little extra plastic and metal, and everything just kind of pops out on the ground there, all kind of exposed. You don't really want that, but it'll be okay for now. So next, at the laboratory, we'll start with a workbench. Now, a medic will work at the workbench and use plastic and those herbs to make medicine, to heal people if they get hurt. And next, you want to produce a tissue synthesizer, which produces meat. Now, you really want to do this because one thing that will happen, and that happened to me, is that these guys, they kind of need to eat a variety of food. So if you just feed them vegetables or just meat, they'll suffer from malnutrition, they'll become incapacitated because of that, and then you'll have to heal them. So that could be bad. And of course, if a certain member of your colony gets incapacitated and you don't have any other members for it, then that could be really bad. Like, if all my biologists are the only ones who can work on plants, so if they were all die for some reason, then I couldn't produce any food and eventually the rest of them would starve. So you really want to make sure. Okay, so next I'm going to start. So since I only have so much metal and plastic, I'm going to need to produce some of my own. So we'll start by producing a mine. So that can go right there. So what a mine does is it allows you to produce ore, which is used to produce metal. And that will bring me to the next structure we will want to build, a processing plant. So the processing plant will have some, well, it has facilities inside of it that will refine the ore and the starch from the plants to produce either plastic or metal, depending on the machine inside. And of course, this is something you want because you want to get more metal so you can build more stuff. And you know, you want your colony to grow. And one of the milestones is having 300 people. And right now I've only got 7, so that's a long way to go. And yeah, this facility will get really big once you hit 300 people. Okay, so one thing to talk about with the oxygen generator. Now, it can produce enough oxygen for 20 people. However, if, let's say, I made the colony in one big line with the oxygen generator at the front, well, if everyone's hanging out in the back, then the air back there is going to get stale, and then they won't be able to breathe. So even though there may only be like 7 people, but they're all hanging out in one room and the oxygen generator is on the other side of the colony, they could still have oxygen problems. So, yeah, that's something you want to keep in mind. And also one thing you want to keep in mind is how much energy you're producing. So now let me show you a hotkey. F4, you push F4. This shows you how much energy the grid is producing and how much producing and consuming, how much electricity you got stored, same for water, and oxygen. So you see these 2 buttons. This will disable all non-vital structures, which is basically your energy production facility, your water production, and your oxygen generator. I like to keep the biodome functioning as well because if that collapses, then you're not going to get any food. And this is something you might want to use if in the middle of the night you're starting to run out of energy, because you know you could turn off the processing plant and the mine and be just fine. So I'm going to turn off the mine until I get that. Actually, I'm going to turn it off until I get that processing plant functioning, because you know there's no point in mining ore unless you can turn it into metal, because ore, aside from producing metal, ore is useless. Same for starch. And let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna accelerate this so we know what's going on. So I got my water tower. You see that's filling up. So if this starts so the amount of water these, I think I already said this, but I'll say it again, the amount of water these things produces varies. So you want a water tower for that. And same for the windmill. How much energy the windmill produces is based off the wind. So the wind is blowing really hard, so it's producing the maximum amount of energy. Alright, so I'm going to slow down. Okay, now we're going to go to our processing plant and put the necessary facilities. So metal processor and a plastic processor. So the metal processor will take ore and make it into metal, and the plastic processor will take starch and make it into plastic. And I guess that means I should turn this on. And again, you want to manage your power. So what I've just noticed now is that I'm consuming 25 power. And one thing I know for a fact is that these small windmills only produce about 20 power. So I like to have it so that my solar panels and my windmills by themselves can produce well, like having just windmills can produce theoretically enough energy, and having just solar panels. I like to make the windmills are mainly for me in my mind for nighttime power production, because when the sun's out, you know, the solar panels don't work. So now that I got this small one, I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel up and make a slightly bigger one. And actually, I think I'm going to try and build more here in the future, so I'm going to put this over here. And I'm going to put it right there. And yeah, lots of power collectors. You want a lot of those. I already said that. I got a milestone. Self-sufficiency. That means you can survive. And I may have already gotten the survival milestone, but yeah. So where are we at in this video? I still got a little time left before I stop and do another episode. And yeah, I don't want to bore you guys to death. Alright, so everything's going pretty good right now. Alright, so now these two windmills will produce about 50 power. So, I'm still producing enough power for everything to function. Das is a good thing. This is a good thing. We want everything to function. Now you can see these robots, they got that little icon above them. That means they're kind of falling apart. That's their condition. And to fix them, you'll need spares. So let me push Alt. So these are spares. You start out with some of them, but you're going to need more of these, because not only do robots need spares, but also your solar panels and windmills need spares. Excuse me, I burped a little bit there. But you'll need solar panels and windmills. These guys will need spares. So that's probably the second thing you want to start. The next thing after what I've got here that you want to start doing is produce spares, because without spares, everything's just going to fall apart. And then before I do that, I'm going to actually build a storage facility next, and let's see if I can line it up. So I don't want it to connect to the lab. I want it to connect to the canteen and the factory, so all my stuff goes in there. Yeah, I'm going to build it there, and I'm going to connect it to the canteen. Now, I could connect it to this and this. Yeah, but I'm not going to connect it to this, because even though it doesn't have a T in it, so it's not a dead end structure, I like to treat it like it's a dead end. Speaking of dead ends, I just remembered something I should probably build. So, one thing I forgot to build that I should build like right now so we don't have complications is the hospital, field hospital, or the hospital. Because without that, if these guys get hurt, you'll have to revive them. And do I have enough material for that? Let me check. I do for the hospital. So I'm going to shut this down, because sometimes your workers can get injured while they're working in the mine. So I don't want one of them to get injured and not be able to heal them. So I'm going to turn that off until this gets built. Sick bay. And of course, you can have a small one or a big one. And yeah, I probably should have built this next, but you know, I've got the materials. All right. So I got a little bit of plastic. Yep, that's what I was afraid of. He's using that to make medicine. Alright, so what I'm going to do is build a hospital bed inside this facility. So that way, if one of my astronauts gets hurt, or colonists I should say, gets hurt, then they can get healed. Now, I don't have bioplastic, but you'll notice that. Oh, wait, there we go. Alright, so someone will build that. Once that's built, okay, good. Now I'm going to turn this back on so we don't have any complications. So we can keep producing. So now they're going to start taking all this stuff and bringing it inside to the storage facility. And let's see. Yeah, about these. Yeah. All right. So let's just look at everything, make sure everything's good. So Now, everything's been built. So now the next thing I'm going to build is the factory, and I'm going to put it right here next to the storage center so that everything, all the materials that go in here will easily move to there. And I'm eventually going to connect all of these to a three-way prong so that the airflow is fine, because this area is probably going to get kind of stale. And my little alarm is ringing, so that means this movie is over. I plan on making another one though, so you can see what happens to this colony. So far so good. No one's died. Still got 7 people. We're still self-sufficient. Everything's going right. Yeah, that robot, he kind of fell apart, but the engineer will fix him using some spares. So yeah, I have 10 spares. But once that robot gets fixed, I'm only going to have 9, but it's okay. Once that factory gets going, I can produce more spares, which is something you want to do, because if you don't do that, oh wait, he didn't use spares. I guess that's only for the turbines. Okay, I was wrong about that. Yeah, you can see I'm kind of running out of meals, but that's okay. I got a lot of vegetables, so I can make more. Alright, well, I'm just going to pause the game by pushing the escape button, save. Alright, everyone, you all have a pleasant day, evening, or afternoon. I will see you some other time. Bye-bye now.